Hey folks, it is Rob with the 1515 Bulletin interview. And this week, man, I am excited. We get to host Mark French. He is the current principal at Gatewood Gators. It is an elementary school in Hopkins, Minnesota. And just excited to bring him on. He has been the past president of MESPA, which is the Minnesota Elementary School Principal Association. And he has also been named the Minnesota National Distinguished Principal of the Year in 2015. You can find Mark all over Twitter at Principal French, and he's heavy on the hashtags Good News Call of the Day and Principals in Action. And we're going to focus namely on the Good News Call of the Day and continuation of the PBIS conversation we had in the last 1515 Bulletin. So welcome, Mark. Do you want to just take a couple minutes, introduce yourself, and just tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. Thank you. Wow, you make me seem really important. I am in my 37th year in education and 22nd as a principal. And I say that because even at this point toward the end of my career, I still am as passionate and energized and enthused about the work. Even more so, I think, than when I started. Part of it is connecting with other educators like you, being present for staff and students. So yeah, I'm a very veteran principal. I'm in my third year in the Hopkins district. I made a change from my former district. I now am working in the district in which I live, vote, pay taxes, and can be an ambassador. That's the first time that's happened in my community. And I started out, I went to college knowing I wanted to be an elementary educator. I went right into coursework, so I had that idea, and I've shared many times. The impetus for that was when I was a high school student, we volunteered in an elementary school, and I got to be in Mr. Bernard's fourth grade classroom and thought, this is the greatest job. He's having a whole lot of fun. So it's been a great career and a great match for me.
I think just if people go to see your website too, so for folks that want to just know all things Principal French, he's got a website, principalfrench.com, and your tagline on it, I think if I'm not mistaken, says, "I love being an elementary principal." And if you just follow him on Twitter, like you can see in the pictures that he puts up, currently his image is a Batman image or something to that effect. You can just see the love that comes through, and so I just appreciate you sharing that, because following you on Twitter and now having this opportunity to connect, that elementary passion is certainly not hard to find in you. And I think the students and the staff in your building are extremely lucky to have you in doing the work with them. I do want to hit on something before we go to our interview stuff. You talked about something that I think is a huge deal, and I just bunny trail real quick. You talked about this is the first time ever in your career that you are now working in the district where you vote, where you shop, where you pay taxes. What do you think has been the impact of that on your showing up in your building and you being a part of the community all at the same time?
It's a good question. I think that there is there's value in that. I'm missing the word that I can actually talk in my neighborhood and represent our schools. I can educate and inform. So I think that there are reasons to live in the community in which you work. I understand why people don't or might not want to, but for me, it's been great to be connected. I also feel this community connection. Now I work in Hopkins. I'm a Royal. I support our local schools and our high school. So I've enjoyed that experience of living in the school district in which I work.
Yeah, I've found I did a similar switch. My wife and I moved a couple years back, and now we're in the school district. We're in the city for my school district that I work in, and so we found that just even being able to walk up and down the street and bump into somebody at the local Target or Aldi or whatever it is, I think being an ambassador is a neat opportunity when you live in the district. So
yep, you're right.
So we talked a little bit about PBIS, and PBIS is nothing new to us as educators, but we're always looking for what do we do a little bit different? How do we switch that up? How do we improve or make it better? And you seem to latch on to a movement called Good News Call of the Day. It's a Twitter movement. Happens to be on Instagram as well to some degree. Can you just tell us what is Good News Call of the Day? How did you get involved? Why did you decide to get involved?
Yeah, it was the summer of 2015 in my previous school, and we were a strong PBIS school. We were recognizing student accomplishments and achievements and acts of kindness. I was in a Twitter chat, and a teacher mentioned that she made one positive phone call home for one of her students every single day. And I thought, I've got 750 kids in my school. I can certainly find one student every day. And that's how it was born. And I have experiences with students. I have interactions and I overhear conversations and I watch them do something. So that is how I identify most of the students that I select for the Good News Call of the Day. So this must be my 4th year of implementing it. I brought it to my new school, and I wanted to recognize the positive things that our students do, because there are so many more of those things that happen than the negative. And for whatever reason, we get stuck on the bad incidents and the negative experiences. We've got to highlight the kids that are doing the great things. And most are just simple things: holding the door open for somebody, stacking the trays in the cafeteria, contributing in class. So my first year, I made 130 calls. I try to do one every day I'm at school. The second year, 135. Last year, I think it was 137. This year, my goal is 150. And it makes my day. I feel like something is missing when I'm out of the building or I have not made that connection. So that's how hashtag Good News Call of the Day was started.
You finished your statement there that with something that I think is neat, and I'd just like you to kind of maybe talk a little bit more about is you talked about, I mean, you have your statistics of how many phone calls you've made, and I think sometimes we get wrapped up in the reality of, you know, this is going to go on Twitter, and I'm excited to see, you know, it be shared, and I'm excited for other people to try this work. But you use the word, you build a connection. And so thinking about being an administrator, you know, we have loads of different things on our plates, and this is an opportunity for you to connect with your kids. And so what have you seen, you to your students? What is that connection as you started to make these phone calls and you started to pull kids aside for this positive stuff? How has this impacted the connections you have with the 700 and some odd kids you have in your building?
I think that for me, it is about the principal noticed me. The principal saw me. You know, the principal knows me. There are some leaders who have expanded and taken Good News Call of the Day, and they ask for positive referral forms, or other people can nominate somebody. And in my school, yeah, people do, but the majority of the calls are an experience that I had, a conversation that I had. And when you can call the family and speak from the principal's perspective, I was in class and watched and saw your child, or they came up to me to do this, or on the playground, I saw this. I think the fact that, wow, the principal is acknowledging and saw something in my child, I think that's a strong connection. Part of my wishes were hoping that other staff members would take this on and make those positive calls. And they do, they reach out to families. But when the principal notices me, I think that that's a strong relationship building, and we have a bond. I mean, there are kids from previous years who, hey, remember when we called, or when can we call again? Or so it's having an impact on students and our families.
So kind of just expand on that just a little bit. And you had mentioned now that you live in the community in which you work. What has been the impact on the community? So have you bumped into a parent at Target or at Walmart or at a local store, or as parents come in for conferences, what has that done to your parent community as you've started to make these phone calls? Because now I'm hearing, I mean, over 3 years, it's close to, 450 calls. So what is that doing to your school community?
I think what it is doing is it's sending the message that we at Gatewood are recognizing the positive contributions of students. I think it's one example. Mr. French makes a good news call of the day. We also recognize one student per classroom as the citizen of the month every month. I see teachers highlighting students in their communications to families. So I think it's part of a community response to sharing the good things that are happening, selling the great things that our students are doing, communicating that. And yeah, I come across parents who will mention the good news call of the day, or thank you for recognizing my student. You can definitely hear it in their voices when we're making the call in person, because I used to start out with, "This is Principal French calling. I have your child in the office." This dramatic pause. And then I thought, that isn't really good. Now it's, "Hi, it's Principal French. Do you have time for some good news?" And I explain why I'm calling and the reason, and then turn the phone over, and they get to talk with their child. It's great to watch and witness that.
That's so cool. I think the parents in the few times that I've been able to do this is they're just surprised that they're getting a positive phone call home. And
Yep.
I think that's awesome that, you're doing it to a serious degree of the number of times you're doing it. But that being said, so we're talking 400 and some odd phone calls. Your staff has probably seen or witnessed you doing this, pulling students, your parents, your district. Have there been any challenges or bumps in the road of like, oh, I wish I would have, done that differently, or you've got some feedback on it not being such something that maybe parents or teachers felt comfortable with, or have you had any of that with this?
It's interesting that you ask. I got some feedback that people felt like it was Principal French self-promoting. And we get that on social media. And I really thought about it this summer and thought, why do they think that? Well, my previous practice was I took a selfie with the kid. I thought, I want to see their smile. I'm happy. This year, I changed that up, listening to the feedback and wanting really people to know I'm focusing on the student. It isn't about Principal French. So now I had a Twitter frame made. So I take a photo of the student peeking out of the Twitter frame, and it's a photo of the student and the reason. People would think you didn't have to do that, but I tried to listen to the feedback. I want it to be about the student. And another challenge has been, I would have thought that more of the staff members would have bought into it. And I have recommendation forms on my door. They don't. I not sure if they think, well, this is Principal French's thing, I'm just going to let him do that. But I'm okay in finding students and thinking about them. And sometimes I think, oh, I have to make the good news call of the day, and I will just walk around the school and remember an incident or come across a student. So those are a couple of the challenges. I really want it to be about the student.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think that's a challenge, as a lot of us that are on Twitter that are trying to celebrate the positive things that are making a good impact on students or a good impact on our community. And there's that fine line or a balance of, I'm really not trying to promote myself, but I do happen to be a part of the work. and finding that balance. And so I appreciate you kind of sharing with us what that looks like. So thinking about there are newer principals, newer administrators coming into this, and maybe that'll be watching this and thinking, okay, so that's a great idea. I want to launch into something like that. I want to take PBIS and I want to try to take it this way with my school. As administrators look to do that, or maybe even just teachers look to do that in their classrooms, what advice might you have for them as they start to put themselves into that work?
I would say start simple and start small. People watch me now, and I can't make that many calls. I don't have that great Twitter frame. I don't have a large following. That's okay. Just start small and think of something that you can do. My presence on Twitter and on social media was started by George Koros at the TIES conference in 2013, telling your school story. So I made it a goal. I'm going to go back to my school. I'm going to take a picture of one thing, a really interesting thing every day, and share that out. And I did. I mean, it just started with one photo and one tweet. You can do the same thing. Maybe it's just, I'm going to make my good news call of the week. Maybe I'm just going to find one student each week. Just be consistent, follow through, and then expand it. I tell people I can't compare myself to all people on social media and Twitter. Just as I don't want people to compare themselves with me. You just have to make it a goal, start small, and follow through.
Great. I think that's a good point as far as starting small. And I think for a lot of newer administrators, newer teachers, or just teachers looking to be innovators, they really are trying to think of ways to change things. And then they hear an idea like this, and then they feel like they've got to implement it at this huge level. And then when it doesn't happen to that level, there's disappointment or frustration that sets in. So I appreciate that you're saying take that time and really be the word I'm going to latch onto there is consistent. So coming up with a plan of being consistent. So I heard you say, you start to think about as you work your way toward the end of the day, oh, I've got to make that. I didn't do that today. Are there other things you're implementing or doing that keep you consistent, or are you just in such a routine now that that's just a normal part of your day?
Well, the good news call of the day is just a normal part of my day. It's on my mind. Sometimes I'm walking around and capturing experiences and think, okay, that can be my good news call of the day for tomorrow or for the next day. And I shared earlier, when I've come to the end of a busy day, maybe I've filling in a classroom, on the playground, having meetings, and I don't make that connection, I really feel like I missed something that day. So I even put it into my schedule, my daily schedule. I can now accomplish it in about 15 minutes. And I've added a couple components. I print out a certificate for the student. We take a photo. I give them a wristband. We make the phone call home. So I will put it into my schedule and find a 15-minute block, because it also forces me to be out among students and visit classrooms. So scheduling it has helped me be consistent.
Right. Well, that's a good point. We're very busy folks, and so scheduling that in, it makes a big difference. Well, I hope that folks have found what you've shared and what we've talked about today to be beneficial. But now we'll do the fun part. You and I talked before the interview started, and you shared that you're going to be doing a little bit of cooking for those of us that are going to engage in some sort of celebration or just family time tomorrow. Tomorrow being Thanksgiving, and however families decide to celebrate that or not. I just figured I'd link some questions to it. And so just some fun ones as you start your morning. Are you going to start your morning with coffee or tea?
Neither. Diet Coke. I'm a cold caffeine person.
I love it. I wouldn't have even expected that. Cold caffeine. All right. And are you going to do a turkey or a ham?
Ham. I'm not a great turkey lover. Maybe I just haven't had a good one. All of it seems dry to me. So we're having ham.
Perfect. And then are you going to finish with a pumpkin pie or an apple pie or nothing at all?
I am baking a pumpkin bundt cake today. So no pie, a cake, but it is a pumpkin cake.
A pumpkin cake, a pumpkin bundt cake even sounds better. I'm not a personal fan of pies either, so I'll join you there. And I hope everything turns out well. Folks, such a blessing to have Mark on our show. Make sure to follow him on Twitter at Principal French. Check out his website, principalfrench.com, and come back in a couple weeks where we're going to do this again. All right. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.